You're on with Lauren Beisheim
and Aaron Holman.
And today we are going to take a jump back in our history to the great years of the 1920s.
The economy changed a lot after World War I. People's lives were a lot easier and enjoyed to have in the Roaring '20s. This is because of many reasons, but one was that a lot of new inventions were introduced in the 1920s. For example, the television, flappers, jazz, and penicillin. There are many more great discoveries later in time in the Roaring '20s.
These great changes in the economy did not just happen overnight. Something must have caused it. Many things did. One cause would be that more people bought houses, and that gave the economy very good money. The people who built the houses also got their fair share of money as well. Their job was to build the houses, so they got paid for doing their jobs. Speaking of getting paid jobs, that was another great cause in the economy boom. More people in the United States of America got more sophisticated jobs that are well paid. With all the Americans getting these new jobs, they are able to make the money they need to care for their families back at home. With all of these workers working away as factory workers, shoemakers, and bakers, and many more, we were able to produce more and more products that their customers needed and wanted. With the products being made faster, more customers can buy the products more often. The money that the customers spent on these products, they gave the economy more and more money every day.
The last cause that caused the economy to boom was the amazing new inventions. We all know that a lot of great and memorable inventions were introduced in the 1920s. Well, here are some. One that we all love is the beloved radio. Radio was a big hit. Everyone wanted one. Citizens wanted to listen to the king of jazz, Louis Armstrong. Another way to enjoy the great music of Louis Armstrong in a fun way was to participate in a dance marathon. People joined in the dance marathon almost every weekend to have a fabulous time. This brought in a lot of money to the economy. Nowadays, almost every kid and adult love electronics. The first electronics were invented in the 1920s. For example, the radio, which we already mentioned. 3D and sound movies. Now, who doesn't like a good old 3D movie? Well, almost everybody did. A lot of citizens purchased them at stores. Sound movies were also invented. They are still the bestest hit of today. We hardly have soundless movies today. We have all sound. Sound movies still bring in billions of dollars. A big-time boom to the economy. The economy boom was a great milestone, but it led to many problems as well.
The economy after World War I was not as perfect as it sounds. There were many problems in the economy as well. One problem was that farmers were in high demand for cattle and crops. Not many people wanted the farmers' cattle and crops, so they didn't get bought. This is a big problem in the economy because without crops and cattle being bought, no money was given to the farmers and the economy. This leads into the next big problem in the Roaring '20s. Since the farmers were not earning any money from their cows and crops, farmers were not able to buy the new things they needed to support their farms, such as better cattle or seeds to plant new crops to sell. This is not the only reason the farmers were very poor. They also had a lot of useless land and loans to the bank. Since they had no money to buy crops to plant, their land is useless, just sitting there. The land is like a house. House owners have to pay a mortgage for living in the house. Well, it is the same for farmers' land. Whether they are using it or not, they still have to pay for owning it. Before the war ended, people's jobs were to build guns for the army. After the war ended, they didn't have to make guns anymore. The gun makers were going to switch back to being farmers again. Now, these gun makers were so used to making guns that they didn't know how to switch back to being farmers again. Now, these gun makers, this was a huge switch from gun makers to farmers. They were not prepared for this switch and did not know how to start their farm up again. All of these problems affected the people living in the Roaring '20s at this time. It was a time in the world of very hard work. These problems eventually were pushed out of people's minds and great impacts took their place.
The Roaring '20s had many great impacts to the economy boom as well. One impact would be that women had rights in the economy. This meant that women in the country could do whatever the men in the country were allowed to do. For example, women gained the rights to vote for president, legislators, and senators. This was a big deal in the 1920s for the economy. They didn't only get the right to vote, but the right of fashion and purchasing what they wanted to purchase. Women in the country could spend their money on their clothes, and the money would go to the economy. This made the economy more healthy, and money as well. The economy grew because of money, because more customers were purchasing more items and giving the economy more money. Another impact to the economic growth would be that penicillin was discovered.
This changed the economy because doctors could prescribe penicillin to sick patients. Sick people would have to continuously buy this medicine to heal their sickness. This brought in a lot of more money to the economy and economic growth. There were a lot of more great impacts after World War I ended, but here is just one more impact to the Roaring '20s. With all of this earned money in the economy, people living in the United States could buy what they and their family needed to survive. For example, with the more sophisticated jobs people had, they were able to buy food, clothes, and their house payment and other needed things to their family and themselves. The war ended and the economy boom impacted the 1920s in many more ways. These impacts were very important to the economy of the United States because they impact our present-day time now. Women have rights now, don't they? Doctors prescribe penicillin today, don't they? Yes. Those impacts didn't only impact the 1920s, but they impacted our present-day people as well. These great impacts changed the economy then, and it changes the economy now.
The Roaring '20s changed many lives in the United States.
And we feel that the Roaring '20s was a very great and memorable time in our history, and we are very thankful that it happened.
The 1920s had exclusive events that impacted all of our lives today.
What you have learned in this report was only a sliver of the 1920s of what happened in the Roaring '20s.